Okay, we're about to start here. First thing I want to say is thank you to the scholarship winners. Congratulations to all the scholarship winners. Great job, well deserved. Also, thank you for Calvin Castine coming to film this. Definitely, we definitely like that idea. And also, when we start eating, we're going to start from this corner and then just go up, and then that area, and then this area. All right, so. Second, I'd like to say thank you to our guest speaker, Mike Holmesy, who is sitting right here. Mike, why don't you raise your hand? Thank you for coming. Third, I'd like to acknowledge the coaches who have come to our referees banquet. It's always nice to end the season and be able to talk to the coaches, and it's a good idea. And finally, and most importantly, I'd like to take time to thank you, and to also thank my lovely wife, Doris, who has put up with my officiating for our 10 years of marriage. You know, I started in late August and then March, and it's a big sacrifice for really any family. And hopefully all referees have said thank you to their wives and spouses and at one time or another during the officiating season. So we have a nice evening planned, and so let's start by having dinner. Let's start right here with Kyle's table. I've known Mike Holmesy for almost 7 years, and he's one of the classiest individuals I've known both on and off the court. Even with such an outstanding officiating resume, Mike always takes time to help any official out. He's always done that. His officiating accomplishments are just outstanding. He officiated in the 2004 Olympic Games in Athens, officiated 10 Canadian National Championship games, officiating in numerous World Basketball Championships, which Kobe Bryant and LeBron James and Chris Bosh, they all participated. He had some of their games. Officiated 2 ABA championship games and 1 Premier Basketball League championship game. Officiating in the World University Games. He's got over 20 years of international officiating. He's a teacher at John Abbott College. He played collegiately basketball at McGill University. Played 1 year with Kevin O'Neill, who is now the head coach at University of Southern Cal. Mike's also an outstanding husband and father. He has 3 children. Put it in simple words, Mike Holmesy is the best official I've ever seen. Ladies and gentlemen, Mike Holmesy.
Tom just made a pass. Wow, so far away from you guys. Move up. Thanks, Tom. It's been a while since I've been back to Plattsburgh. This used to be a destination of ours from Montreal quite often. And I guess the last time I was in Plattsburgh, we were in Montreal, we were board 106, IAABO board 106. And I think Tom had a little more hair back then. We used to come down to Plattsburgh quite often because we used to go to the Pyramid Mall. We used to buy our Chuck Taylors over at Cahill's. We'd head over to the Pizza Hut across the street, get rid of all the packaging that we purchased, and then head back home. Those were good times. Tom asked me to speak a little bit about, I'm going to try to keep it moving as much as possible. I know you guys want to get on to other things. And first of all, let me congratulate everybody who is here today, especially the scholarship winners that are present tonight, and other award winners as well. Tom asked me to speak a little bit about FIBA, about the international game. FIBA is the Federation of International Basketball. It's the rules that we play in Canada and actually in most countries around the world. And some of the differences between FIBA and the Federation High School rules and so on. I mean, I can't tell you a lot about what the Federation High School rules are about because I've never done them. But I can certainly talk a little bit about FIBA, and I'm going to try not to bore you, and everything I share with you, I do it in the humblest way, because I'm not trying to brag about experiences, but they're just things I just want to share with you to give you an idea of what the FIBA flavor is all about. The FIBA game, I guess, from my experience with it, is that it's a game where they try to, the rules are designed, the philosophy of the game is designed so that there's a lot of game flow. Very little stoppages, very little interruptions, as much as possible. The rules are set up so that the game continues on as quickly as possible. As you know, back in the day, there used to be the no handling of the backcourt throw-ins by the referee. Well, that's changed, obviously, and that's been out for a long time, but they still try to put the ball in play as quickly as possible. If the thrower is ready to throw the ball in and is in place, they give them the ball. The timeouts, for example, are also a little different. There are a limited number of timeouts, unlike the NCAA rules. And the time when you can take your timeouts also, in FIBA you can only take them during dead ball situations. So you can't stop the clock while you're coming off the floor in possession of the ball and ask for a timeout. So it reduces the number of timeouts you have, it reduces the interruptions in the game, and it keeps the game flowing. And people will say that the game is decided by the players a lot more because of the fact that the coaches don't have as much control of the game in terms of the timeout situations. Some of the other things that are unique to the FIBA rules, which also illustrate the game flow, is that the shot clock violations. Whereas in the NCAA rules, if the shot clock sounds while the ball's in the air and it doesn't hit the rim, the whistle blows immediately and the other team gets the ball. In FIBA, the whistle will only blow if the offensive team interferes with the defensive player getting possession of the ball. So, shot goes up, horn sounds, ball doesn't hit the rim, the defensive player gets control of the ball, they allow the play to just go, okay? Because really there's no disadvantage there. Defensive team got the ball, and so the play continues on. So just another example of the way the game is played. If anybody, does anybody have any experience with the international game, with the FIBA game at all? Just curious. As a player?
No,
As a coach, okay. Some people will say, I don't know if that's your experience with it, but they'll say that the advantage-disadvantage rule is stretched a little more, where there's a little more contact in the game and it's a more physical game. And I would tend to agree with that to some extent. I think more so than the NCAA game and probably the high school game, that play is allowed to move on a little more, and unless there's a disadvantage gained by a player or placed upon a player, usually the play will go on unless it's severe contact or something that needs to be interrupted. So those are just some of the things. I think some of them are good, some of them are bad. I think that there's always room for improvement. Just an example of one of the changes in 2004 at the Olympics, we were refereeing two-man system at the Olympics. So we were refereeing players like LeBron, like Carmelo Anthony, Dwayne Wade, Tim Duncan, all of these guys with two officials on the floor. And so you can imagine, the difficulty of doing a two-man game at that level. But, I would say that refereeing those U.S. players wasn't really a huge disadvantage. I mean, you can communicate with the American players. We could communicate with the American players. Their game was a lot more disciplined, so it made it easier to referee them than if you were to take, for example, some of the European players. You get teams from Spain, from Greece, from Argentina, where communication could be a barrier in terms of getting along with players, understanding what they're saying or how what you want to say to them. But also just the volatility of the culture, where they come from. And I don't mean that in any disrespect whatsoever, but obviously they come from a different type of a culture where they react to things a little differently. And so it makes it a lot more challenging to manage with just two officials as opposed to what we do now. But just to give you an idea, wheelchair basketball was using 3 officials by 1998. And it wasn't until 2005 that FIBA adopted 3-man at the ABLE body, the stuff that most of us are accustomed to. So it takes a while for changes to take place. Sometimes longer than we expect, but eventually we get to where we want to get to. Just talking a little bit about FIBA, about some of the strides that they've made. They've made a lot of changes in the last 5 years, I would say, in terms of their educational material. A lot of DVDs are available now as training manuals, as training tools for officials. Something that they've adopted also at the major international tournaments, they would have morning meetings with all the officials to go over game tape, to go over scenarios, how to approach situations, and so on and so forth. It used to be that, and especially when I first started working the international level, we would go to a tournament, we would show up there, we'd get our assignment, we'd work the game, no feedback whatsoever. Nobody would talk to you, nobody would tell you how you did, what you need to work on, what wasn't handled properly in the game. You'd go home and you'd get your assignment under the door in the evening. There'd be a little envelope that would slide in under your door, and then you'd find out where you're working, who you're working the next day, and that was it. And then tournament's over, get on a plane, and you go back home. And that has changed a lot, whereby now they have their commissioners and they have their observers that are at the tournaments, where they come into the locker room and they talk to you after and go over situations, which to me, I think every official appreciates that. I think we all like to get some feedback on our games. Excuse me. People ask me about working international games, some of the memorable moments, some of the things that are special to the experiences that I've had. I can tell you that, being an international referee for a Canadian is actually the Canadian dream. For us, we don't have the opportunity to work NCAA basketball or the NBA. Our aspirations are not to go there, but for most Canadian referees, it's to become an international referee, to get their FIBA card. And certainly for me it was. For many years, just leading up to the certification program and then getting my FIBA card, that was my dream. And it was something that I was able to realize in 1996. Some of the things that are special, to me in terms of, accomplishments and so on. I've had the opportunity to referee in 5 continents, 11 countries around the world. I've experienced a lot of different, things that have happened in games. Many of them good, some of them, not so good. You work in South America, for example. In Argentina, there was the World Qualification Tournament. And the frenzy on the court, and the frenzy around the court is just unbelievable to see the passion that these people celebrate a game with. In some cases, they're watching the game and they're reacting to everything that happens. In some cases, they're up in the stands and they're not even facing the court. They're turned around with their back to the game and they're just banging the drum and trying to get everybody into the excitement of it all. So, you see that and you wonder, where does this come from? I've had the opportunity to referee at the World Championships in Indianapolis in 2002, and one of the special moments I take from that is having an opportunity to play golf with David Jones, the NBA referee. We went to the Indy Brickyard, where they have the Indianapolis 500, and they've got a golf course where 4 of the holes are actually inside the racetrack. So we got a chance to play golf there. In Spain, this was the World University Games. I was watching a game, and a couple of the guys that were working the game, they had to bring out this big slinky. It's like a portable tunnel that comes right out to center court to get the referees out of there, because fans were throwing coins and all kinds of objects at them. This is the international game. Unfortunately, this is the mentality. You'd never see that in North America. That doesn't happen here the way that it happens in international ball. I've had a chance to eat kangaroo pizza in Australia. Tastes like chicken. Okay, it's like chicken. But I was there. I was in a restaurant where we were in a pub or something, and it was on the menu. I had to try it. It was one of those things. One of my first experiences was in Montreal, just after getting my FIBA card, and there was a game between Canada and Brazil, and the game right from the get-go was it was something that we knew we were going to have to manage right off the start. It was a third game in a 3-game series, and then they were all going home. So the game got out of hand. There was a brawl. There was a court. It was just a brawl. The benches cleared. Player went into the stands, took a chair, was about to swing it. It was just, this is international basketball. Unfortunately, it doesn't happen like that all the time, but it does happen. And you guys, you must have seen the footage from last year's event. It was between what 2 teams? Just leading up to the World Championships, there was some. I don't know if anybody's seen it. There was again a court, a bench clearing brawl where players went into the stand, went into the court, grabbed chairs, one player threw a chair at somebody. I don't know if anybody saw that. No? You guys get YouTube here? All right, let me just get to the 2004 Olympic Games, which was, for me, a highlight and one of those dreams that I put in front of me. The Olympic Games is something like nothing you've ever experienced. I was fortunate in '76 to work at the Montreal Olympics. I was a student at the time, and I got a job there, and I had an opportunity to work there. And I refereed in a pre-Olympic tournament in 2000 in Australia, but being at the Olympics in 2004 in Athens was unbelievable. The minute you get off the bus, when you arrive, they take you to a welcome center. They outfit you with a suit, shirts, pants, shoes, casual clothes. They give you, all kinds of stuff that they dress you up with. We attended the opening and closing ceremonies, so I've got some, great souvenirs of that. Walking around the Olympic Park, going to any event that we wanted to go to. We had an access pass that allowed us into all kinds of events. Had a chance to witness gold medal, the 100-meter gold medal, and a cycling event where the gold medal was presented as well. Not to mention just the regular culture of Greece. Walking in the old part of town, the Plaka, and eating souvlaki, authentic souvlaki, and swimming in the Mediterranean Sea. Those are all special. I just want to share something about the Olympics with you that, for me, has always been something that's been very special to me and emotional in some respects. My most memorable memory of the Olympic Games happened months before the Olympics ever took place. It was the day that I actually found out that I was going to the Olympics. I was in Halifax, Nova Scotia. For people who don't know where Halifax is, it's on the east coast of Canada, the Maritimes. And I was refereeing at the Canadian Championships. Just finished working the semi-final game, and I was on the phone with my wife. Sorry, I get chills every time I tell the story. We were talking on the phone about the next day who was going to be potentially assigned to the championship game. We hadn't found out yet. And she says to me, well, they can't keep an Olympic referee off the game. And I heard what she said, but it just didn't register. It went right in one ear and out the other. And we kept talking about the possibilities, and she said, well, Mike, they can't keep an Olympic referee off the game. And I just kept talking, and she said, shut up for a second and listen to me. And I usually, when she says that, I listen to her. And she said, you have been, you've been selected to go to the Olympics. She got the news before I did. And she was trying to, let me know that I was actually going, and I just had no clue. And finally, when I finally sunk in, I broke down. I couldn't believe it. But that's part of the realization of a dream that you have. And whether you're a referee, whether you're a player, you're a coach, we all have things that we want to accomplish. And this was something that, for me, was something that I worked very hard to get to. And I was very fortunate that I was able to be selected to go to the Olympics. What followed that was amazing to me. The excitement that people had around me for the fact that I was going to the Olympics, it just blew me away. Friends, family. When you see how your kids react, to the fact that you're going somewhere special as the Olympics, it just makes you so proud. I know they were proud of me, and it was a special moment just to see the excitement in their eyes. It's tremendous. You can't explain it. Let's see what else here. I know that, there's probably many of you here that have accomplished many great things as well. Tom, who I know personally, some of you I don't know very well, but you know that whatever you've done in life, you haven't got there alone. Somebody's helped you along the way, and I know that that was the case with me. When you have a tough game and somebody comes over to talk to you, and let you know that you did your best, you worked hard, whatever it may be. If you get you get home after a late game and you're on the phone with maybe your mentor or somebody that believes in you that you want to share with. There's always somebody that helped you get where you got, okay? And somebody who will always be there for you. And you've got to remember that whether you're an official, whether you're a player, whatever you do in life, somebody will always be there to help you along the way. I happen to be very lucky in that sense. One of the first things that I learned, one of the first lessons that I learned as an official is that someone will always be watching you when you're refereeing. And what that means is that no matter who they are, whether it's a supervisor, it's an observer, it's a coach, it's a parent, somebody's always watching you and somebody's always making a judgment about who you are and what you do. So from the moment you get on the court, the way you dress, making sure that your clothes, your uniform, your outfit, your whatever you want to call it, your pants are pressed properly, your shirt is not wrinkled, your shoes are shined. The way that you walk on the court, the way that you stand on the court, okay, sloppy or you standing professionally, the way you communicate with people, everybody makes a judgment about you at all times. And the impression that you make obviously goes a long way towards how they're going to react to you, how they're going to deal with you, whether somebody wants to help you along the way, and so on and so forth. So always be aware of that. That's very important. As Tom mentioned, I teach physical education at John Abbott College in Montreal. It's just it's west of the city. And one of the things that we teach our students is goal setting. And goal setting is something that I strongly believe in for anybody. And I mean this for anybody in the room here. Whatever you do, whether you play, coach, referee, you're in your job or whatever, goal setting is something that's critical that we all have to do. We all have to put something in front of us and work towards it. And I don't mean just saying that I want to get there, I hope I get there, but to actually, commit to it, do what you need to do. Write it down on paper, maybe put it in a sealed envelope and give it to somebody and put a deadline on it if you'd like to reach, that goal. Leading up to the Olympics, that was something that I did. And as I said, we teach it to our students, but I had to live it myself. And I did everything that I could do to put that goal in front of me. I had pictures around the house of Olympic rings, of athletes playing Greece, Athens, those types of things. I put that dream in front of me. I had on my screensaver on my computer, I had a picture of the Olympics. I had all kinds of stuff out there that just kept reminding me and keeping me focused on what the dream is. And that's, something that we all need to do. Because otherwise we just, we live life day to day without having any aspirations about where we want to get to. And we all have goals. It doesn't matter, what age we are, it doesn't matter where we are in life. We all have things that we'd like to accomplish. So, make sure that you do that. That's something that can definitely help you. Just, further to that, especially as a referee, and I think this goes also, towards being a player as well, be a student of the game, learn the game, study the game. Take the time to, see yourself referee, videotape or, whatever means that you're filming that takes place at your game. Get a copy of that and watch what you do. Watch your mechanics. Look at your dead ball mechanics. Look at your, the way you're running down the floor, the way you're, signaling. Anything that you do, you can be the best critic of the work that you do. You don't need somebody telling you, you did this right, you did this wrong. I think that as officials, we are our best critics. We know when we get off the floor whether we did a good job or not. supervisor might come in and tell you, great job, you guys did well, but, in the back of your mind, there was a call that you're not happy with. It might just be one call, but we're perfectionists that way, and we want everything to go just right. And so be honest about, about the work that you did, and take the time to, evaluate the work that you do. Watch other referees. If you have an opportunity, get out there and watch other officials. Learn from other people. Take what you like from them. Everybody does something differently. If you like something somebody's doing, you don't take it. There's no copyright on this. You can use whatever somebody else does as long as it fits in with what your board supervisor wants you to do. Okay? But look at other officials, because there are some, good things that are happening out there, and we can improve our game by taking some of those things. You guys as Americans and me as a Canadian, we share a very common bond. Number one is that the game of basketball was invented by a Canadian, but it was introduced down in the States in Springfield by James Naismith in 1891. James Naismith was a phys ed instructor at McGill University, the same school that I went to as well. But he introduced the game originally 13 rules. 13 rules, that's all it was at first. The game's changed a little bit since then, do you agree? We've got a few more rules now. But I think that, by the way, those original rules, did you hear about the sale of those rules recently? They sold for $4.3 million at an auction. Those original 13, the paper that they were written on, $4.3 million. All right. But I think the game has changed, and as I mentioned before, there are rule changes all the time, things that we improve on. The FIBA game is currently played in 213 countries in the world. 212 of those use FIBA rules. Anybody know which country doesn't use FIBA rules? Free dessert, extra dessert for anybody who doesn't. You know what? I understand where that's coming from. I know that there are some. The Federation High School rules are designed for a specific age group, and I think that's important. The NCAA rules are designed for a specific age group and a certain target. That makes sense as well, and so are the NBA. But I just want you to know that the FIBA rules, they are written for so many countries, and they're written very simply. They try to keep them as simple as possible, because they have to be able to be communicated and interpreted by countries that are developed, the basketball is developed, and other countries where the basketball is not as developed. And so they have to be kept as simple as possible. I was talking to Tom before about some of the rules. I'm sure you guys have grown up with some of the North American rules. We have the 24-second shot clock in FIBA, and I think that's great, because I think that adds to flow of the game and keeping the tempo of the game going. The 35-second shot clock, to me, I don't know. That's a personal thing. I think it's way too long. I just don't think that the game needs to have that much front court offense. I think players should be encouraged to try to get to the basket a little quicker. I just see a lot of ball movement on the perimeter, and they still get down to the last 10 seconds, and then they start running the offense to try to score. That's just a personal opinion. But the FIBA game, certainly with the 24-second shot clock, it does speed things up a lot. We're going to be having some rule changes also back home. FIBA's adopted some additional rule changes which will be adopted next year. They were introduced in 2008. 2012, we're going to a three-point line that's further back than where it is right now. Not exactly, or it's actually very close to where the NBA line is. They're going to an NBA lane as opposed to the trapezoid lane in FIBA. We have a lane that starts at the free throw line, and then it widens as it gets down to the baseline. So they're going to go with the rectangular NBA lane. And we're also going to be implementing the restricted area, the block charge semicircle under the basket. All that's coming up in 2012. So, I think the rules are coming together a lot more. There are some things that, FIBA held on to the jump ball for so long before they actually went to the alternating possession arrow. Now more and more things are coming into effect. I don't know if they're necessarily all good. The three-point line being pushed back, I would argue that, for some players at certain levels, that's the wrong thing to do. I think that we're not teaching them to shoot the ball properly. If they're forced to shoot it from the three-point line, which is already close to the NBA line, we should be teaching young kids to shoot with proper form and to shoot from their range and not try to force, a three-point shot from a distance that they can't handle. I'm going to close off. There are a couple of things I just want to mention. People, who I've had questions from officials who want to get their FIBA card and want to know how do they go about that. Certainly, you have to contact somebody from USA Basketball. I don't know what the actual procedure is, but it does go through USA Basketball. But it is something that a lot of American referees are doing now. At the major competitions like the Olympics and the World Championships, because of the NBA players being part of those games, usually they use NBA referees. But for a lot of the other competitions, whether it's a U20 or a U19 or whether it's university games or a club championship, they don't necessarily draw from the NBA referees for those. So there are a lot of opportunities for American officials to work some of the international competitions. Just make sure that if you do follow the certification, that you understand that you will be traveling to some very exotic and interesting countries in the world. You may have to sample the local beer in other countries. Things like that. It's a culture shock, but you'll get over it. Talking about, I'm going to just share one memory with you that I have from the Olympics. I made a call that resulted in the loudest boo that I ever received in a game, and there were about 17,000 people there. And it was a call that I made against Luis Scola from Argentina, where he definitely went over the back, and one of the players on a rebound knocked the guy out of bounds. Well, the guy fell out of bounds, and the crowd booed. They didn't like the call. And we're walking down the floor to shoot free throws at the other end. And Manu Ginobili is walking next to me, and he goes, I don't think they like that call. And I nodded. I said, yeah, I can sense that. And meanwhile, while we're standing for free throws, and in FIBA we stand this way for two shots with two hands up, and they're showing the replay up on the big screen, and clear as day, you could see that Scola knocked down whoever it was from Spain. It might have been Gasol or whoever. And Manu turns to me and he goes, they were wrong, that was a good call. And it's just, some of the opportunities where you get to share moments with players like that, with Manu in that case. In Las Vegas in 2008, it was a qualification tournament for the World Championships. Actually, it was 2007. I'm confused on my dates. It was in Las Vegas. And I was asked to not only referee in the tournament, but I was also asked to show up to the U.S. practices because they wanted some referees to referee their scrimmages. So there were a few of us there. But we had an opportunity to, share some moments with some players like Dwight Howard and Kobe and LeBron and Billups and all these guys. But those are the special moments. Basketball refereeing is great. My greatest memories aren't going to come from what happens on the court. My greatest memories are going to come from the things that happen around the court, the people that I shared this with, the people that I traveled with, the people that I refereed with. Not so much the games themselves. It's nice to say that you did the Olympics, that you did World Championships and so on. But you know what? 100 other people could be in the same position as me. We have a lot of officials back home who can referee at that level. A lot of referees, obviously, in the U.S. that can do the same. I was just a very fortunate Egyptian-born kid living in Canada all his life and had the opportunity, but it can happen to anybody. So, as I said, refereeing it's an exciting avocation. It comes with responsibility. Keep your life in balance. All right, those of you who have families, especially, keep your life in balance. identify your priorities and work towards those priorities. But always, and Tom, you stole my thunder at the beginning, most of all, thank the people around you that help you do the things that you do. All right, tonight I thank my wife, I thank my kids, and I thank you for your hospitality. Thank you very much.
I'm like Mike, I'm not going to use the microphone. Nobody said something big loud to begin with, so I don't think I need this. A couple things when he was talking. First off, he starts talking about, a lot of people could be a FIBA official. He said, North America, they don't throw bottles. I don't know how many people went to the PHS NCCS game. I got him a bottle. So, Mike, it does happen here. It most certainly does. He then started talking about, FIBA officials and how they have the wide trapezoid laid, and they have, the farther out three-point shot. I'm actually thinking I could be a FIBA official in this case, because I know Ron Gimbro likes to get right about to half court, and if we kept that 24-second shot clock, Ron would never have to move from the baseline. So I'm telling you right now, this is a great idea. I think Ron and I could do that. We'll move right along. We'll do the Sportsmanship Award. This year we actually had 2 winners. We went down to a tie-breaking vote. We had more emails sent out, back and forth. It still ended up a tie, leaving it as a tie. The first one tonight is going to be to Northeastern Clinton's Rob Guerin. Rob has had numerous awards for the sportsmanship. This year is no different. He exudes what I feel is utmost sportsmanship, not only for his players, for his staff, but his program. Not only to the officials, but to the other teams. So tonight, to accept this, I'd like to have Jerry Davison come up, assistant coach for Northeastern. 2011 Northeastern Clinton. The second award goes to Seton Catholic's Larry Converse and the varsity boys at Seton Catholic. Unfortunately, Larry was not able to be here tonight. As many of you know, Bob Daly, who is a longtime supporter of basketball in the area, has fell ill lately, and he's in the hospital here at CDPH. And Larry was actually on his way this afternoon. I talked to him about 1 o'clock, and at the very end, he wasn't able to make it. So to accept the plaque for Larry Converse and the varsity boys basketball team, I'd like to have the athletic director for Seton Catholic come up, Matt Wallentuck. I'll try to go in order how it's on the program. Excuse me. Most of the stuff I remembered in my head, but I'm sure I'll forget something along the way. The first recipient is Alexis Coolidge from Sable Valley. When we start looking through these applications, hers was the first one that was actually in the stack. And I was like, wow, this is pretty impressive. 5-year member of the varsity girls basketball team, 4 years in soccer. You start now looking at 1,200 points. From that point, you start reading the recommendations that have been given to her. Truly amazing. Absolutely, truly amazing. Her GPA is so close to valedictorian or salutatorian, they're actually waiting to the end of this semester before they decide who is who. She doesn't know I know that, but I did a little research on it. And it's down to 1,000th of a point, whether who's going to be valedictorian or salutatorian. So she takes after me quite a bit, honestly. With that said, I'd like to have Alexis stand. Alexis Coolidge, recipient from Sable Valley, 2011. Next is Dylan Everlith from Saranac. I think Dylan's probably most known for the Plays of the Week, in which I'm included in that play. I think that's obviously what you're known for. Not for the fact that he was all CVAC in football or all CVAC in basketball. but obviously the WPC plays of the week. He is going down to play football at SUNY Cortland, and he will be an asset that will absolutely be missed at Saranac. Dylan, please stand. Next, Kyle LaPointe from Plattsburgh High School, one of the best athletes in the area by far. His knowledge of basketball, his vision on the court is unparalleled. When reading the recommendations from both his coaches and peers, it's absolutely astounding to what they believe in him. They have the utmost respect for him. When there's a go-to guy, it was definitely him from Plattsburgh High School, and one of the main reasons why PHS did so well this year. Kyle LaPointe, Plattsburgh High School. Next is Emily Manchester from Plattsburgh High School. Coach Sue Wilson gave her one of the highest praises. One of the most coachable, knowledgeable, and all-around great young ladies she's ever coached. That's a big compliment. She will be going to SUNY Oneonta for fashion, merchandising, and international business. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Outstanding. Emily Manchester, Plattsburgh High School. That's okay, I skipped over Jamie. No big deal. We'll come back to Jamie now. Jamie Davison from Northeastern Clinton. If you see this young man, he doesn't bleed, he has ice water in his veins. Shoots threes from anywhere at any time, does not feel pressure. Rob Guerin tagged him as the most coachable and most knowledgeable player he's ever coached. And for someone who's been coaching for quite a long time, that's truly a great honor. Jamie Davison, Northeastern Clinton. Next is Katie Bruno from Peru Central School. I had Katie up here talking to her a little bit before. All-around phenomenal athlete, plays 3 sports. Now she's even going into tennis. Phenomenal athlete. She's going to be doing some broadcasting. Whether she's going to go to University of Albany or Plattsburgh yet, we're not quite sure. But she's definitely an asset that Coach O'Connell will miss. Katie Bruno from Peru Central. And lastly, but not least, Will Flynn from Peru. Will is another phenomenal all-around athlete. Baseball is by far his love, his passion. But on the basketball court, he has fit into an excellent role for both Coach Matt Berry and Mr. Clemens. When I talked to John about, give me some things about Will, and he gives you the epitome. He says he's the first one there. He's always willing to help out. Never has a crossword. I said he must get that from his dad because we know it's not Kathy. His Kathy's so quiet. But on the serious side, Will is an absolutely outstanding athlete, and he's going to be sorely missed next year at Peru, that's for sure. Will Flynn, Peru Central. Just a couple notes to go over. I know I'm going to forget something, so I'm going to keep the notes in front of me. In 11 years as doing this as scholarship chairperson, we've given out over $30,000 in scholarships for area seniors. $30,000. That's a lot. And how we come up with this money is, if you saw in the program, Jim Karen and Andy Gay worked tirelessly for 2 weekends and many weeks before for a tournament that's being held at Peru. This year we brought in well over $5,000 for scholarships. What we do is we take $500 basically a year. We put it in case there's a year where we can't have it. There's inclement weather. It almost happened this year. And we put that aside. But as of right now, I'd like to have Andy Gay stand up. Andy's right over here in the corner. Outstanding job by Andy Gay. Unfortunately, one of our very generous supporters throughout the last 11, 12 years that we've been doing these tournaments. It started with Tom Lacey doing the alumni tournament, and now over to Jim and Andy would be Scott Bombard from Graymont Materials. So Scott, thank you very much for this. These $500 scholarships are given out at the end of the first semester of college. So what they do is basically they send you their transcripts, and from that point, the Secretary and Treasurer will sign off a $500 check. You get a nice certificate in the mail as well with that. And from that point, it's basically used for whatever you want. I can imagine what the guys would use it for, the girls would use it for, but parents use it say for books or whatnot, but you can use it for anything you want. So all it is a requirement that you're enrolled in the next semester. So, like I said, congratulations to all the scholarship winners. And two of our former scholarship winners are actually officials now. One of them, which is Andrew Bombard, out in the back corner. And Dennis Labarge, who's also another official of ours, who's not here tonight. A couple people I want to touch on real quick who are not able to be here tonight. One is Rick Frisbee. Rick Frisbee has been an official since 1978 in our association. He did explain to me at the beginning of the year that he would not be officiating next year, and this would be his last year. In the end of January, beginning of February, Rick came down with some serious health issues and was unable to continue at the end of the year. But for someone who's been officiating for over 31 years in our board, I thought he deserved a special recognition here tonight. And unfortunately, he wasn't able to be here, so let's give a nice round of applause to Rick Frisbee. A couple people also that I want to recognize who have felt ill and just keeping your thoughts. Roy Eno, Jimmy Brickey, and Bob Daly. Those people have had a little health issues lately, and you know, as everyone says, you know, health is number one. Without health, you have nothing else. So keep those people in your thoughts, please. Special thank you to the VFW, the people here. Look at that, she's walking in right as we talk about it. A nice little round of applause for them for the great dinner that they've provided. And I've already told our last speaker with closing remarks he has 10 minutes, and at that point I'm going to start clapping. That'll be his cue that we're done. But on the serious side, Peter Millen, our interpreter, thank you very much, and Peter for closing remarks.
No, this will be brief. I won't use the mic following Randy's line, but I was listening to Mike talk, and he gave me a picture that I couldn't get out of my head. I was sitting back there with Paul. He was talking about, I think it was Spain, where to protect the officials, they had to throw like a slinky out so they could leave the court safely. And I was envisioning Randy, and I could see the slinky go out, and him get into it and get stuck. And I could see him trying to pull the slinky out the court, and the spectators grabbing his legs, trying to pull him this way. And I just said, I don't think that would work in every case. They made the slinky big enough. But, anyway, I had that on my mind the whole time. Ever since you said that, I don't know if I listened to much after.
They have that call in another country.
Some kind of airlift thing. I was talking with Paul in between speakers, and I was trying to add up the number of years I've been interpreting, and you know, it comes to like almost 18, which just I can't fathom. Because when you say interpreter, I still think of Eddie Gallagher or Randy Gallagher, who did it since I started refereeing. And so 18 years sort of struck me as a lot longer than it feels like. But I know one thing I said at our last meeting to officials, and I said, make sure you take care of each other. I was listening to Mike talk. When the ball goes up, we're caught up in the moment. We're doing what we're trained to do. We referee, we're looking for fouls and violations, and we don't really think about anything other than the game. But when the last whistle blows and the horn sounds, that's when we need to take care of each other. That's when the stress, self-doubt, real criticism from anywhere. You'd be surprised sometimes where it comes from. And we can't control that. It comes with the territory. That's why so few people officiate sports. It's not an easy avocation to get involved with. There's very small praise and a high deal of skepticism. I mean, watching the NC2A lately, you know, very good officials get under a microscope and criticize for, you know, some very, as referees would say, not a big thing, but all of a sudden it's blown up on ESPN, and that's all it's talked about for 5 or 6 days, and it seems like it was a major issue when we know it wasn't that major an issue. And very rarely do officials, and I would say almost never, do officials determine the outcome of the game. The only people that think that are newspaper and sports announcers. We know we don't. We play an important part, but we don't determine the outcome. And we should never think we do. You know, I watched an outstanding game last Saturday, Plattsburgh Northeastern. I watched an outstanding game yesterday, Northeastern and Potsdam. And when I got a chance to look at the game, Northeastern and Plattsburgh up in Northeastern through Calvin's. And I couldn't have said anything about the officiating other than a great job. And in fact, for the most part of the Plattsburgh Northeastern game and the Northeastern Potsdam game, you didn't even notice the officials around the corner. Which is, as an official, you know, that's what you strive for. That you sort of just become that invisible part, and people pay attention to what they came there to watch, and that was their sons or daughters playing that activity. And that you don't get, focused in on the black and white stripes. And I thought that's what happened. And that's the biggest compliment I can ever give to an official, is that I didn't even notice you out there. Things went so smoothly, everybody did exactly what they should do, and I can't tell you how proud I am of this board. And it's too bad, because I was talking to my son in closing, and he's a hockey player. My oldest boy's a hockey player, played hockey his whole career, ever since he was really young. And he got caught up in the watching these NC2A a little bit, and he wanted me to explain a charge block, because then he watches it on the TV, and sometimes he thinks it looks like it should be a charge, and they don't call it. Sometimes he thinks it looks like it should be a block, and they don't call that. And I started to explain it to him, and it took me probably 15 minutes, because there's a lot to it, and we take it for granted. We know, you're refereeing a defense, and you know the parameters and all that. When you explain it to somebody who doesn't know anything about basketball, it's like you're talking another language. He goes, Dad, he says, I don't know how you do it. He says, I don't think I'll ever figure out that play. I said, well, you know what, then you could be a basketball player. I think you fit right into that category. But they can't figure it out either. I said, so it just sort of made me appreciate what we do and the pride we take in what we do when we go out there, and the amount of time we have to put in to making it, some people might think, look easy, like anybody should be able to do that, or anybody could do that. And we know, and we should know, that not anybody can. Physically people can, but not everybody is cut out to step onto that court and put on that uniform and take charge of that kind of a country. So again, I'm extremely proud of our board. I'm still going to count up because I don't think it's 18 years, but I'm very proud of what we do, and I can just see things getting better and better in the years to come. And I congratulate the scholarship winners. I constantly am very proud of what our board does for area athletes. Not to compare it to any other sports, but I really am proud of what our organization does to assist area athletes in their endeavors when they go on to collegiate athletics, or just college in general. They don't have to play sport. So again, I'm proud of those accomplishments, and I think a lot of the people, when I look at Ron, that refereed with us a long time ago, would be proud of that too. So again, thanks for everybody coming out, and have a good night. You got anything?
Before you leave, the scholarship winners, if anyone wants to take a picture, and I'll come be the last. If you want, we'll take a picture right up here. All scholarship winners, and then after that, I'll leave the scholarship.